Growing up in one of New York's toughest neighborhoods, Fat Joe stepped on stage that night with nobody noticing the gun in his pocket. But the truly shocking thing was who the weapon was meant for. What happened next would either destroy his career forever or transform him into the legend we know today. If you want to discover how one night changed hip-hop history and why Fat Joe's music carries such raw emotion, hit that subscribe button right now because this story will blow your mind. 1992, South Bronx. Before Joey Cartagena became Fat Joe, he was just another kid trying to survive the merciless streets. The concrete jungle where dreams died young and loyalty was the only currency that mattered. That humid August night he was about to perform at Hip Hop Club for the first time, but nobody knew he would face the biggest decision of his life before stepping into those stage lights. The day had started like any other. Joey was working at his uncle's bodega, stacking cans and serving the neighborhood regulars who'd known him since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. Mrs. Rodriguez came in for her usual coffee, commenting on how much he'd grown. "Mijo, you're getting so tall. Your mama must be proud." But Joey's mind was elsewhere. Tonight wasn't just another night. Tonight he was finally going to prove himself on the stage where legends were born. But you haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. The Hip Hop Club wasn't just any venue, it was the place where Big Daddy Kane had first made his mark, where LL Cool J had honed his skills, where dreams became reality or died trying. Getting a slot there meant everything to a young kid from the Bronx. Joey had been preparing for months, writing lyrics until his fingers bled, practicing his delivery until his voice was hoarse. This was his shot at greatness. As afternoon turned to evening, Joey headed home to get ready. The apartment he shared with his mother and little sister was small but filled with love. Pictures of his absent father still hung on the walls, a reminder of dreams deferred and promises broken. His mother Maria was working double shifts at the hospital to keep them afloat. She'd left him a note. "Mijo, break a leg tonight, I'm so proud of you. There's leftover rice in the fridge. Love, Mama." Joey smiled reading the note, but his expression quickly changed when he heard the phone ringing. The voice on the other end was frantic, desperate, terrified. It was Big Pun, his best friend since childhood, the brother he'd chosen rather than the one he was born with. "Joey, man, I need your help. They got me surrounded at the corner of 109th and Grand Concourse. These cats ain't playin', bro, they want blood." The line crackled with static, but Joey could hear the fear in his friend's voice. Big Pun wasn't easily scared. If he was calling for help, the situation was beyond serious. Right at this moment, everything changed. Joey's hands trembled as he hung up the phone. Big Pun wasn't just his closest friend. He was the only person who truly understood Joey's dreams, his struggles, his desperate desire to escape the streets through music. They'd grown up together, shared their first rap battles, written their first songs together in Joey's bedroom while his mother worked nights. Losing Pun would be like losing a piece of his soul. But tonight was also the night. The night he'd been preparing for his entire life. The Hip Hop Club performance could change everything. Talent scouts would be there, record executives, people who could offer him a way out of the neighborhood that had claimed so many of his friends. Missing this opportunity might mean never getting another chance. Joey looked at himself in the mirror. His stage outfit hung on the door. Fresh white t-shirt, baggy jeans, the gold chain his father had left behind. He'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, practicing his entrance, visualizing the crowd's reaction to his lyrics. But now all he could think about was Pun's terrified voice. The rational choice was obvious. Call the police. Let them handle it. But in their neighborhood, calling the cops was often more dangerous than the original problem. The police didn't distinguish between victims and perpetrators when they saw young Hispanic men on the corner. Too many of Joey's friends had been arrested, beaten, or worse during routine police responses. When they knocked on the door, Fat Joe's decision was made, but before Joey could decide what to do, heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside his apartment. 3 sharp knocks on the door. His blood ran cold. In their building, people didn't just drop by for social visits after dark. Joey crept to the peephole and saw 2 men in dark clothing, their faces obscured by baseball caps. "We know you're in there, Joey," one of them called out. "We've got a message for you about your friend." The voice was calm, almost conversational, which somehow made it more terrifying than if they'd been shouting threats. Joey's mind raced. How did they know where he lived? How did they know about Pun? His apartment was supposed to be safe, the one place in the neighborhood where he could escape the streets. But now the streets had come to his door. He quietly moved to his mother's bedroom and reached under her mattress where she kept a small .38 revolver.
She'd bought it after Joey's father disappeared, when the neighborhood had gotten too dangerous for a single mother raising 2 children. Only use this if your life depends on it, she'd told him, and pray you never have to. The truly shocking thing was yet to come. Joey checked the gun, fully loaded. His hands were steady now, adrenaline replacing fear. He had a choice to make, and he had to make it fast. Through the thin apartment walls, he could hear his neighbors turning up their televisions, pretending they couldn't hear what was happening in the hallway. In the South Bronx, survival often meant selective blindness and deafness. "We're not here to hurt you, kid," the voice continued. "We just want to talk. It's about your friend Chris." They used Pun's real name, which meant they knew more than they should. "He's gotten himself into some trouble, and you're the only one who can help him now." Joey crept back to the peephole. The 2 men stood patiently in the hallway, not trying to break down the door or force their way in. This wasn't a robbery or a random act of violence. This was something more complex, more dangerous. "What kind of trouble?" Joey called through the door, his voice steadier than he felt. "The kind that gets people killed if they don't handle it right," the first man replied. "Your boy owes some money to some very serious people. The kind of people who don't negotiate payment plans." Joey's heart sank. Pun had been struggling lately, trying to help his sick mother pay for medication she couldn't afford. He'd been taking odd jobs, some of which Joey suspected weren't entirely legal. But Pun had always been careful, always smart about avoiding real trouble. That moment we've all experienced, having to risk everything to protect the ones you love most. Joey asked, though he was afraid of the answer. 15,000, the second man spoke for the first time. His voice was rougher, more menacing. "And they want it tonight. No extensions, no partial payments. Tonight." $15,000 might as well have been 15 million to Joey. His mother's entire annual salary was barely more than that. The only money Joey had was the $300 he'd saved from working at the bodega, money he'd planned to use for new recording equipment. "We heard you got a performance tonight," the first man continued. "Important people gonna be there. People with money. People who might be interested in helping out a talented young man with a problem." Joey's blood ran cold. How did they know about the hip-hop club? How long had they been watching him? The performance was supposed to be his secret weapon, his chance to escape the streets. Now it was being used as leverage in whatever game they were playing. But the real shock was yet to come. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Joey demanded, though he was beginning to understand the horrible calculus of their proposition. "Simple," the first man said. "You perform tonight, you impress the right people, you get yourself a record deal, or at least some serious interest. Then you use that leverage to get an advance, maybe find some investors. You've got connections now, people who believe in your talent. Talented people can find money when they need to. And if I can't." The silence that followed was more terrifying than any threat they could have made. "Let's just say your friend Chris won't be able to enjoy your music career," the second man finally spoke. "And neither will you, or your family." The mention of his family sent rage coursing through Joey's veins. His mother and sister had nothing to do with this. They were innocent, hard-working people trying to build a better life. The idea that these animals would threaten them was almost more than he could bear. But the gun in his hand felt heavier now, not like a solution but like another problem. If he used it, if he tried to solve this with violence, he'd be confirming every stereotype about young men from the South Bronx. He'd be throwing away his chance at the hip-hop club, and probably ending up dead or in prison. Right at this moment the phone rang again. The shrill sound cut through the tension in the apartment. Joey looked through the peephole. The 2 men were still there, waiting patiently. The phone continued ringing. Finally Joey picked it up. "Joey, thank God." Pun's voice was even more frantic now. "Listen to me, bro. Don't trust anyone who comes to your door tonight. This whole thing is bigger than just money. My cousin Rico got involved with some people from Manhattan, some real serious players. They're not just loan sharks. The line went dead. Joey stared at the silent phone, his mind racing. Manhattan players meant organized crime, possibly mob connections. This wasn't just neighborhood muscle collecting on a debt. This was something much more dangerous, much more complex. He looked through the peephole again. The 2 men were gone. The hallway was empty, but Joey knew they hadn't disappeared. They were somewhere nearby, watching, waiting. They delivered their message, and now they expected results. He hadn't learned the biggest truth yet. Joey sat on his bed, the gun still in his hand, staring at his performance outfit hanging on the door. Everything he'd worked for, everything he'd dreamed about, was hanging in the balance. But it wasn't just about him anymore. Pun's life was at stake. His family's safety was threatened. And somehow his performance tonight had become the key to solving everything. He thought about his father, who'd disappeared when Joey was 12. His mother had never talked about why he left, but Joey had always suspected it involved money and dangerous people. Now he was facing the same kind of choice his father had faced. Run away and abandon the people you love, or stay and fight a battle you probably can't win. Joey made his decision. He tucked the gun into his waistband, put on his performance clothes, and headed for the door. He was going to the hip-hop club, but not just to perform. He was going to save his best friend's life and protect his family, even if it meant risking everything he'd worked for. When they knocked on the door the next morning, Fat Joe was ready. But the person at the door was someone he never expected. The performance that night was unlike anything Joey had ever experienced. The crowd was electric, the energy was perfect, and his lyrics flowed like they were being channeled from somewhere beyond himself. He rapped about struggle, about loyalty, about the impossible choices young men in the streets had to make. Every word was authentic because he was living it in real time. But in the back of his mind, he was calculating, watching the audience, identifying the people who looked like they had money or connections, planning how he would approach them after the show, how he would convince them to help him raise $15,000 for a friend's life. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was using the biggest moment of his career, not to advance his own dreams, but to solve a problem that could destroy everything he'd worked for. But that's what loyalty meant in the South Bronx. That's what friendship cost when the stakes were life and death. The answer Fat Joe gave would change hip-hop history forever. When he stepped off that stage to thunderous applause, Joey Cartagena had been transformed into Fat Joe, not just because of the performance, but because of the choice he'd made. He'd chosen loyalty over personal advancement, friendship over fame, love over fear. Those choices would define not just his music, but his character for the rest of his life. And that's why every Fat Joe song carries that raw emotion, that authentic pain and triumph. Because he didn't just rap about the streets, he lived them, survived them, and found a way to transform that experience into something beautiful and powerful. The gun in his pocket that night remained unfired, but the lessons he learned would echo through every beat, every rhyme, every performance for decades to come. The story of that night spread through the hip-hop community, becoming legend. Young artists looked up to Fat Joe, not just for his talent, but for his character, his loyalty, his willingness to risk everything for the people he loved. And that, more than any hit song or gold record, is what made him truly legendary. Years later, when Fat Joe had achieved international success, and was performing in sold-out arenas around the world, he would still remember that August night the night when a scared kid from the South Bronx chose love over fear, loyalty over personal gain. The night that taught him what it really meant to be a man, in a world that tried to destroy boys before they could grow up. This is why Fat Joe's music resonates so deeply with millions of fans worldwide, because every song comes from a place of authentic struggle, real choices, and genuine emotion. When he raps about loyalty, he's not just using words, he's sharing scars. When he talks about surviving the streets, he's not creating fiction, he's documenting history. And that's the real story behind the legend. Sometimes the greatest performances happen before you even step on stage, in the moments when you choose who you want to be. Fat Joe's legacy isn't just about platinum albums or Grammy nominations. It's about the courage to choose love when hate seems easier, loyalty when betrayal might be profitable.